I'm Marie, the host of Vinyl City Broadcasting, your transit express to rock and roll trivia. I'm sitting in the green room at the beautiful Cerritos Center for the Performing Arts in Cerritos, California. I'm dressed a little differently today. How do I look? We'll be doing several interviews today. The first is with a gentleman who grew up in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and taught himself how to play the guitar at a young age, Mr. Jimmy Clanton. Being raised in the Louisiana culture with the rhythm and blues influence and his extraordinary soulful vocals, Jimmy became known as the swamp pop R&B teenage idol. He was one of the most popular teen idols of the 50s and 60s, hitting his stride with 7 charted hits between 1958 and 1962, 3 being in the top 10. Let's review some of Jimmy's accomplishments. Jimmy is in the Museum of Louisiana Swamp Pop Music. In 1996, he was inducted into the Gulf Coast Hall of Fame. He was inducted into the Louisiana Music Hall of Fame in 2007. Who can forget 1958 and the first time they heard Just a Dream? We'll dream no more. With that same wonderful voice, just as strong as it was in 1958, and that beautiful killer smile, we have Mr. Clanton with us today on the show. We're now going to turn this over to Dan Pequeno, our VCB interviewer and contributor. Run the interview of Jimmy, Rico.
You guys look good together, I just want to say that.
Okay, ready?
Ready.
Hi, Dan, once again with Vinyl City Broadcasting. On my left, somebody whose music I've been listening to since I was a much younger person, Mr. Jimmy Clanton. Great history. We're going to ask him all about you, your person, who you are as a person, your music, how it came together.
Okay.
So tell us a little something about you, Mr. Clanton.
Well, I'm from Louisiana. Down there, we Southerners actually call it Louisiana.
Okay.
And I was born down the bayous in Golden Meadow, Louisiana. My mother's from Cutoff, Louisiana. It's almost to the Mississippi River there. Nothing but Louisiana bayous on both sides. And then when I was about 6 years old, we moved, my dad and my mom, we moved to Baton Rouge. And I actually grew up in Baton Rouge. I went to high school there. I even went to my alma mater to LSU, Louisiana State University. I went to LSU for a while. And when I was there, I'd gotten really hooked on playing music. And I I ended up getting a $12 pawn shop guitar, taught myself how to play. Even though I was left-handed, they didn't have a left-handed guitar, so I bought a right-handed guitar and taught myself to play right-handed. And I became very, very good. And so by the time I was 17, almost 18, for a white kid, I was probably the best guitar player to play, period, in all of Baton Rouge. And a guy had heard about me, and he had this group called the Night Trainers, and he needed to get into the swamp pop rhythm and blues atmosphere of clubs and dance halls. And he knew he needed a guitar player, and people had said, you need to go hear this kid, Jimmy Clanton. So to make a long story short, I ended up, you can play music, you can go into a bar when you're 18 in Louisiana. And so I had just turned 18. Actually, I was still 17, but they let me in because I was the guitar player.
Wow, they had to cut a little slack.
And so I started playing music in this band, and it was called the Rockets, and played in that band. We played all along the Gulf Shore, Gulf Coast down there, and we were probably the best white kid rhythm and blues band, swamp pop in that whole part of Louisiana. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
So I remember some years ago when you and I chatted for an hour and a half, which was so much fun. You were talking
You
about...
don't mind me saying we're not going to do that today.
No. But you, your first song, you walked into a recording studio. I think you paid $25.
Wrong.
What was the story?
Well, the story is that I was just a guitar player. And I had no interest in doing the singing because I just loved to play guitar. And the piano player, he's the one who did all the singing. But just before we went, his girlfriend told him, said, there's a studio in New Orleans, which is only 90 miles away from where I live. Said there's a studio in New Orleans, and for $25, they'll give you an hour recording time, and you guys can hear how you sound on record. So, hey, that's a cool idea. Now, just before I'd gone with the Rockets, I had played just a background guitar, and I'll never forget this. This is out of context, but I overheard this conversation. The band leader says to the other guy, he says, well, I have to pay him $5 a night more because he sings. I went, oh, okay. $5 in 1957
Was
went
$5.
a long way, you know? And so just before we had gone down to New Orleans, and Dick was doing most of the singing, and I went over to him one day at one of the gigs. I said, Dick, I said, you're going to wear yourself out. You're going to get hoarse. You're doing the singing all the time. And I said, I don't mind doing a song here or there to help out. I said, however, the band I was with, the guy got $5 a night more. And he said, well, let's just try you out, and we'll see how that goes. So I'll never forget, this is before any recording device was invented. So you had to memorize songs, or to learn them off the record. Oh, thank you, Sandy. And so I'll never forget, this song came out. I love this song to this day, by Arthur Neville. He was one of the Neville brothers on Specialty label.
Okay.
And he came out with this song. Ooh-wee, baby, I love, love, love you so. Ooh-wee, baby, don't ever let me go. Fool that I am, to think you could love me too. Da-da-da-da. So the band started playing with me. I learned that song, and I phrased it just the way Arthur Neville did. And I'll never forget this. We're in this one club where we were, several hundred people, and I'm up there doing Ooh Wee Baby, and everybody just came down off from dance, and everybody just gravitated right up to the front and just stared at me. And I'll never forget it. I never understood it, but at the time I did later. Two guys looked at each other, and this guy said, man, that guy can sing.
Hey,
And I'm thinking $5 a night.
Hey,
more,
$5?
I mean, got it from here, you know.
that's what, about 20 hamburgers?
And there was a lot of girls smiling at me too, I'll admit that, okay? So the bottom line was, I had started doing a few songs here and there. So we go to the studio, Dick records all these original songs, and I'm sitting over there, and he said, okay, we're finished. And this is like a script from Happy Days. And all of a sudden, the guy at the control says, you got 6 more minutes you paid for. You don't have anything else? Dick said, I don't have nothing. And he looked over at me. He said, Jimmy, do you have anything? Well, it just so happened I had broken up with my first love, and I had never written a song before in my life. And I'm in my living room with my guitar. And like I say, I was an astute guitar player. In fact, I was a great guitar player. And I ended up in the living room killing some time, and I ended up writing this song. How in the world I remembered it at the studio, I think, is supernatural. And I said, well, I got this little song called I Trusted You. And so Dick said, well, might as well put it down. And so I may have to sneeze here in a minute. Be right with y'all. Here we go. And so it was like a real Louisiana swamp. I trusted you for such a long, long time, and now you're telling me bye-bye. So what'll I do? Da-da-da. I'm so blue. Da-da-da. I trusted you. That was the swamp pop type ballads of that day. So I ended up recording that. You know, we had 6 minutes left. So we go back to Baton Rouge. About a week later, we get a phone call from a guy named Johnny Vincent who owned Ace Records. And he said, I happened to come into this studio. He said, I'm recording a group here, and I happened to hear you. And he said, I like that song. I like the way you sing. I like your intonation. So, and he said, would you come to New Orleans? I want to talk to you about recording. This really just seemed like, you know, just a dream. This was way before just a dream. I ended up going to New Orleans, talking with him, and lo and behold, I signed a record contract with him. He said, but I don't want the band. He said, I just want you. And I said, well, that's okay, but I want to continue working with him. He said, that's all right. So we recorded I Trusted You, and they put it out, and it was real big in Baton Rouge because here's a local kid who made a record. So we were playing engagements all over, and I'll just get right to this point, and then I'll kind of take a break here vocally and let you talk. And so for about 6 months, it played all over, and then I got a call from Johnny Vincent. He said, we need to come back to the studio and do some new songs. He said, you got anything you wrote? Me? You know, and I didn't realize it. I said, well, I could come up with something. And I ended up being just a machine. Man, I'm knocking songs out like left and right, you know, of that Louisiana type sound. So I go back into the studio, and I'll never forget the saxophone player who did all of the Fats Domino records and Little Richard records. And I said, well, I got this ballad, and there's another ballad about this, my lost love, you know. And so I teach him this song, and we just start playing it. And that saxophone player looked over, talk about, I could see it like it was 2 seconds ago, 1958. He looked over and he said, that is a hit. And it was just a dream. We put that out, but just when he's getting ready to put it out, he calls me, and it was April of 1958. He said, I want you to pack a suitcase. I'm going to put you on a plane. You're going to Philadelphia. I've got you an opportunity, and you're going to be on this new TV show called American Bandstand with Dick Clark. And, you know, I'd never been on an airplane. To me, Philadelphia was like going to Venus, you know. And so I ended up flying to Philadelphia. I did a lip sync, and all the girls seemed to be crazy about me. And I go back home, and Johnny Vincent got orders for like 100,000 copies the next day. And man, within 10 days, I'm on a plane. I'm going to New York. I'm signing a major contract with a booking agency. Alan Freed wants me. Everybody wants me, and it was like a whirlwind overnight. I just took off from that song.
Outstanding.
Yeah.
Another question is something I learned about you earlier, and this is so interesting to me. If you'd like to talk about it. February 3rd, 1959. Richie Valens, the Big Bopper, Buddy Holly, they pass away. How were you connected with that?
Well, I was on another big tour, and I remember this distinctly also. There was a knock at my hotel door, which I still had another week to go on this tour. And the promoter came in with a very somber look on his face, and he got right to the point. He said, Jimmy, I'm going to ask if you will do something. If you will leave this tour and pick up another tour, let me tell you what the tour is. And so he told me, he said about Buddy Holly and Big Bopper and Richie. He said they were in a plane, they wanted to fly ahead of time to get to the next town. Plane crash, they died. The promoter insists that the tour go on. And so I agreed, and I'll admit it was very, very difficult. I flew up to Cedar Rapids, Iowa, and picked up, got there, and I remember getting on that Greyhound bus, and the only act alive was Dion the Belmonts. They were sitting there, and we knew each other, and they were looking at me, and I'm going, hey, how's it going? We were all just in a fog, you know. And at the very back of the Greyhound bus, you could still see the guys' clothing, a lot of their stuff still there, you know, Buddy's guitar and so forth. And I'm thinking, man, what am I going to do? So I ended up, because I being a good guitar player, and so part of my show was I played guitar and did a tribute, you know, with some of the Buddy Holly songs to him. But I had already done shows with Richie Valens. I knew everybody. Richie Valens was in the movie I made, Teenage Millionaire, a rock and roll movie. He was in that, and you know, it was incredible. Yeah.
All right.
So I finished out that tour.
So one final question.
Okay.
Any funny stories, memories you'd like to share with Vinyl City Broadcast? Stuff that you share with Sandy or your friends. Go, I remember, what was that story?
Well, I'm gonna have to say the funniest.
There we go. No smiling here. Just kidding.
That I have ever come across. I was in Memphis, Tennessee. I think it was 1959, part of a big show. And I asked somebody backstage, I said, does anybody know, is Elvis in town? I said, you know, if I could meet Elvis, well. And come to find out, he was in town, he was home, and through a friend of a friend, we got word to Elvis, talking about, you know, Jimmy Clanton would love to meet you, is there any chance, da-da-da. And lo and behold, after the show, we drive up to Graceland, you know.
Hey.
And they let us through. It's like, you know, the gates of heaven. Sorry, Lord.
Heaven on earth.
You know what I mean, Lord. And I'll never, this is like so poignant to me. I'm the first one out of the car, and I walk up the stairs and I knock on the door. And the door opens and Elvis is standing there. He had a yachting captain's hat on. And he looked down at me, and it's just, I'll never forget what he said. He said, well, Jimmy, if I'd known you were coming, I would have had Just a Dream on the record player. Now, you know, I'd only had a couple of songs, and he knew my big hit, you know.
That was an honor for you.
It was a tremendous honor. So anyway, he gave us a tour of his house. We're getting ready to leave, and now it's nighttime, and he's got lights on out, and we go out there, and he shows me, he's got his 3 cars. He's got a Cadillac Fleetwood, blue with a pink top, 4-door. Right in the middle, he has a silver, it was a Rolls Royce, Silver Cloud. A Silver Cloud Rolls Royce, baby blue, 1959, gorgeous. And then he had the first Lincoln Continental Mark I next to that. So we're talking, and all of a sudden, because of the way the lights were, you could see silhouettes. And this huge bird jumps up on his Rolls Royce. I'm like, okay. Well, we're just talking there, and then I look over and I see this big bird looking around, and then looks down, and this big bird it starts pecking away at the paint on this Silver Cloud Rolls Royce. I'm going, no, this can't possibly be. So I can't believe I see this bird. He's pecking away at the blue paint on this. At that time, that's probably a $50,000 car, you know. And I'm just staring. I'm going, am I seeing things? And so, sure enough, about another 30 seconds, the bird's looking around, looks down, and paint is flying everywhere. I couldn't help it now. I turned to Elvis. I said, Elvis, look. I said, I don't want to disturb what we're all doing here, but I want you to be aware of something. I said, there is a big bird on top of your Rolls Royce, and he's pecking away at the paint. And Elvis just started laughing. He said, yeah. He said, is that not the crazy thing you ever saw, Jimmy? He said, what he does is he sees his reflection and he thinks he's got competition. He's trying to run the competition off. Isn't that hilarious? I said, yeah, that's really, really funny. So that has got to be, yeah. So
Behind the scenes history thanks to you that you shared with us.
okay.
We would have never heard this before.
Well, that's true. Well, it's going to be my autobiography, which is coming out
All right.
the end of next year. Yeah.
Mr. Clanton, thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
We had a nice time chatting with you. It was so good to hear you out,
Thank you.
sharing with us history of music from when we were much younger.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
So back over to Marie at Vinyl City Broadcasting to conclude this show.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Let's highlight a little of what Jimmy shared with us. The saxophone player in the studio, after listening to Just a Dream, looked over at him and said, "That's a hit." And how right he was. Jimmy was invited to go on American Bandstand. Alan Freed wanted him to go join his tour. He starred in the rock and roll movie Go Johnny Go, and the promoter of the winter dance party where the 3 rock and roll legends perished asked Jimmy to fill in for Buddy Holly for the rest of that tour, which he did. Jimmy played tribute to some of Buddy Holly's songs on that tour. That was such interesting trivia he shared with us. I don't know if a lot of people knew about that. We didn't. And when Jimmy went over to Graceland to meet Elvis, Elvis greeted him at the front door and said, "If I had known you were coming, Jimmy, I would have had Just a Dream playing on my record player." That was pretty cool. And how about that big bird pecking on the hood of Elvis's Rolls Royce? Hilarious. What kind of bird was that? His stories were so informative and fun to listen to. We could have listened to him for hours, but we needed to let him go and get ready for the big show. It was really a pleasure talking to you, Mr. Clanton. Just a wealth of rock and roll knowledge and funny and interesting stories. Thanks for sharing them with us today. We hope all of our subscribers and friends out there in VCB land enjoyed this interview as much as we did. Jimmy, we'll be looking forward to getting a copy of your autobiography when it comes out. More funny stories, we hope. Maybe another Big Bird story. Check out Jimmy's website where you can purchase CDs, watch videos, view pictures, and other cool stuff. We will post all of his info on our last slide. Another big shout out to LAR Enterprises for putting another terrific show as always. Jimmy, when Elvis told you he would have put on Just a Dream when he greeted you at the door, if he knew you were coming, well, we knew you were coming. So it's only appropriate that we close out the show with you performing your classic, Just a Dream.
Jimmy Clanton. Just a dream, just a dream. All our plans and all our schemes. How could I think you'd be mine? Those lies I tell myself each time. I know that we could never live. You just can't seem to end the past. Just a dream I dreamed in vain.